Ready? All righty. Good evening, everyone. Today is August 8th, 2023. It's 5 p.m. We are at 100 Polk Avenue, City of Cape Canaveral, Florida, at the City Hall Council Chambers for our Community Redevelopment Agency, CRA Special Board Meeting. I call this meeting to order. Vice Chair Willis, Chairman Willis, would you please lead us in the pledge?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Board Member Davis?
Here.
Board Member Kellum?
Here.
Chairperson Morrison?
Here.
Vice Chairperson Raymond?
Here.
Board Member Willis?
Here. Thank you. This time is the public participation portion of the meeting. Any member of the public may address any items that do not appear on the agenda. If you like to make a public comment, please fill out a speaker card. If you haven't had a chance to do that and you'd like to speak, you can go ahead and come forward now, and please ask to fill it out before you leave. I do not have any cards here tonight on this agenda. And with that, we'll go ahead and close public participation portion of the meeting. Assuming no one else would like to speak, please raise your hand if I missed you. Seeing none, we'll close it. Back to this council, item for actions. We have 3 items tonight. The first one is to approve the minutes for the Cape Canaveral CRA Board meeting of June 20th, 2023. Board?
I'll move that we approve the minutes from that meeting
Second.
of June 20th, 2023.
Got a motion by Vice Chair Raymond and a second by Board Member Willis to approve the minutes for the Cape Canaveral CRA Board meeting of June 20th, 2023. Any further discussion? Seeing none, City Clerk?
Board Member Davis?
4.
Board Member Kellum?
4.
Chair Morrison?
4.
Vice Chair Raymond?
4.
Board Member Willis?
4.
Motion passes 5-0. Now on to item number 2, which is to consider declining the obligation of Community Redevelopment Agency CRA funds for the Veterans Memorial Park project. City Manager or Director of the Board?
I'd be happy to help, Mayor.
Thank you.
Not Mayor, sorry. At the July 18th, 2023 regular City Council meeting, Council voted unanimously to approve the proposal from Joe Bear Contracting Incorporated for the renovation and construction of Veterans Memorial Park in an amount not to exceed $750,000, contingent upon the CRA Board's subsequent approval. That financial impact section of the agenda item indicated $325,000 from the general fund and $425,000 from the CRA. And that's the reason we're here looking at this item tonight, because the City Council requested that. City staff sent out a memo on July 27th that indicated upon further review of the proposed budget, staff recommends that the contingency in the CRA budget should not be used for the Veterans Memorial Park project. And instead, staff recommends that the remaining CRA funding be utilized to further support existing CRA initiatives, notably the Presidential Streets initiative, as there may be unanticipated additional costs and/or unknown expenses that may arise as that project moves forward. So accordingly, we still have these 2 action items on here, but instead we're asking council and the board to not use CRA funds for the Veterans Memorial Park, and instead use an alternate funding proposal for that, replacing the CRA funding of $425,000 with $425,000 from the ARPA funds, the American Rescue Act funds. We think that's a wiser way to use that money. So if the board is so inclined, I would ask you to consider declining the obligation of CRA funds for the Veterans Memorial Park project, Mayor.
Thank you very much. All right, CRA Board, do we Have any questions for city staff or any discussion?
I have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Please.
On the summary for this, it says that we have the American Rescue Plan Act. The city currently has $900,000 in unobligated AR or ARPA funds. On this page, it says $508,000. So,
I could explain that. The city manager and I have discussed, and we're going to bring it to council in an agenda item, of course, eventually, but the fire department, this is unprecedented, is purchasing 3 fire trucks in 3 consecutive years in the budget. And if I get the amounts off, I apologize. We bought the first truck, cost us, our share was $600,000. Now we have the ladder truck that we just did, and of course, the governor gave the city a grant there, and instead of costing us our share of $800,000 for the ladder truck, it's only going to cost us 400 and some thousand. And of course, we talked about that last meeting when the chief was here and said if we go ahead and pursue this right now, we will, we'll only spend 400,000 instead of 800,000, and we had to do it by August 1st to get our order in because it's going to take 2 years to build the truck, and then and of course, us being able to get the good price. So that's the second truck. Then the third truck is in the following year after this year for like 600K or whatever. It's a CIP, 400K. Thank you. 400K. And the city manager and I, as we talked about it, we're thinking there's no way the city has 400K in R&R money. We've never ever been faced with 3 fire trucks in a row in three consecutive years. So we had discussed that we were going to present to council that next year when we do the CIPs, that we would want it funded by ARPA instead of the R&R, the general fund. That's where the other 400's at, Mickey. We went 400 plus the 508 here. That's where I got the 900K from. Now, if council decides that, and this isn't a thing for next year, not this coming year, that they want to fund the truck some other way through the general fund, then you'll have $400,000 more in ARPA remaining. But Todd and I had a discussion, and it's something we wanted to talk to council about. We're actually going to bring it up in our next meeting, just to let you know that we believe that that'd be the smart thing to do, because, then we don't have to basically hurt the general fund by 400K. So this is unprecedented. I've been here 10 years. I've never seen where we had to buy 3 fire trucks consecutively in 3 years. But that's where the other 400K comes from. I wanted to give you a thorough history on what that was. So there's 508,000 actually, but there's actually 908 if council was to say, no, we don't want you to spend an ARPA on the next fire truck after this year. So that's what that was.
okay. I just feel like the ARPA money, we need to get Veterans Park done. The presidential master street plan is huge, and it's gonna cost a lot of money. I would just rather see the ARPA money spent on flooding and things like that, instead of the park, where Veterans Park is in the CRA and is eligible for those funds. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Can jump in just as a question. Board Member Kellum, so is it your hope that we do not use the ARPA funds for this?
Right.
Okay. council. Any comments on Board Member Kellum's idea about not using?
Just, Mr. Mayor, just to be clear, that would leave us with 508, not using it on the, okay.
That's correct. If we don't choose not to use it for veterans, the 425, we're not tapping into the 508.
Okay.
And then somewhere down the road, if you determine that you would like to use the money on a different project, there's already, like this year, like $2.3 million that council has approved to use for stormwater projects, the center ditch improvement, the Center Street Basin, and then the wastewater project, the clarifier. So
We also,
I was just gonna, if I may. I would tell you this, though, from this perspective, that the presidential streets, we all know is gonna be huge. And we also know that by the rules of the CRA, that if we did not use the money for Veterans Park, we'd have that 400 and some K in the CRA. And anything we don't use in the CRA, as long as we obligate it to a project in the future, we put a PO in and obligate that money towards, say, the presidential streets, we don't lose it. And there was a deep discussion with the city manager, Mr. Dickey, Jenny, myself, and a few others. And there's so many unknowns here. And since we feel like the best use for the future for CRA money is presidential streets, because we have no idea how much it's going to cost at this point, because all the design and architectural stuff and investigating has not even been done on how much it'll cost to do one street. We don't know what's under the ground. We don't know what's going to have to be, excavated, and whether, sewer lines are going to have to be replaced, or how many trees will be removed. Not that there'll be trees removed, but it might interfere. So there's a lot going on there. And we just felt like this is a perfect time that we're going to need that $400,000 more for presidential streets. And we have the ARPA money right here. The balance, the other side of that is, sure, if the city discovers other needs for stormwater and wastewater, then of course, yes, you would have that $425,000 available to you for that if we don't use it for Veterans Park. So it's just, council just has to make a decision on that. Staff, as we talked about it, thought it's a win-win situation if we got the money over here in CRA for presidential streets and we use the balance of the ARPA for Veterans Park. And I know Veterans Park has been a project that everyone is high on, and we're trying to get past the finish line. But to get past the finish line, we need the funding, and this is how we get the funding.
Mr. Chair, if I could add, the direction from the council was also to engage in value engineering for the Veterans Park project, and that could realize some significant savings. So whatever, that $425,000 that we're talking about, that would probably come down to some lower number. I can't say for sure what it would be right now, but we would aggressively go after some value engineering to get closer to what we had originally budgeted for that project.
Thank you. Yes, Vice Chair.
I'm in favor of completing Veterans Park, and I like the idea of using the ARPA funds. I'll tell you why. I think that the way that Veterans Park is situated, and it's ground, and I think that it's very good for the presidential streets and to help get some of this water off of the streets. And I think the swale, et cetera, I think that that's a good place that, could collect water, and that the water can go down into that ground. So I like the idea of finishing it. I think that when we start a project, we should finish it. And I do think that that ground is good. We don't have a whole lot of space like that around that isn't cemented. So I think it could be helpful. Plus with the swale, that could be helpful too. So I like the idea of finishing it, because if we wait, it could just cost more and more and more. And people are asking, the residents are asking. They want this complete. They're asking me, when are we going to complete Veterans Park? So I'm in favor of doing it, and I'm in favor of the plan using the ARPA money. Thank you.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't the swale a separate project?
Yes.
Totally.
But it's there, probably.
Right, but it is not part of these funds.
It is not.
Okay.
Completely separate.
Right, but we're not lumping the swale into this 425,000, so it's not part of that conversation.
No, but the land there will be able to take some of the water from storms. So I think that that part of it is good and a positive thing for trying to get some of that off of the presidential streets. Thank you.
But that's going to happen. So,
And
okay. Mr. DeLeo, you're, I'm not questioning your math, I'm just making sure that I'm looking at it correctly, but that 425,000 in the column for Veterans Park actually moves to the 399 deficit in the next column, is that correct? Is that what's covering it? Well, the aerial truck under actual expenses. Is that that is what that 425 is going to cover?
No, that's totally.
But if we're pulling the
unrelated. Go ahead.
425 out of,
Yeah, Jenny will answer that.
okay,
Well, the aerial truck
right,
has already been paid. That's already out of that.
all right.
So the 425, if you look at it, if you were to spend it out of
Right,
ARPA, would move to the right hand.
okay, so it goes to the right and drops.
Right.
Increases that, okay,
There you go.
all right.
If you look at the bottom, that 4.8 million, that's what's unspent. So that's taking this top number, this 5.4 million, minus all these expenses. So we have 4.8 unspent, and we have what we think is obligated of 4.3. So
And the reason that looks a little bit confusing is because we've obligated this money, but we haven't done any of these projects yet. This is the year, the year coming up is when we're gonna do all these projects. So there's a lot of work that's gonna take place. And so that's why we're looking at something to say, hey, council said, go ahead and spend that money on those projects. And then here's what we spent already. This is the total that we have. And then the difference between what you let us obligate to what's been unspent, meaning those are projects we haven't spent money on. The difference leaves us $508,000 left.
also, if I could just, if you look at the interest income we've made on this account, it's $222,000 through July. So that's almost, half of the Veterans Park. We're making huge money in interest income in that account.
And there's a reason why the government wants these monies spent by 2026, because they do not want you. There's a lot of cities much bigger than us. They don't want this sitting in a bank account accruing interest where cities are making millions of dollars because they're saying, I won't do that for 10 years. No, that's why they want us to get it done in 2026. I mean, this doesn't fall into any arbitrage rules right now, but this is a whole different animal, ARPA. But that is one reason why they do not want this sitting around for 10 years. Could you imagine the interest this would collect?
so that 425,000 that's going to be paid from ARPA does not cover the stormwater component, the stormwater line item
Oh,
improvements.
Right, you mean the swale part?
The
of
swale, the low
Right.
impact development.
That is a.
How is that
there's
being
a-
funded?
There is a grant, and is Zach here? Zach, could you come up and explain it to the mayor?
I'm familiar with the grant. You can come on up, Zach. But do we have to still seed the money, initiate the investment out of the general fund, and then award the grant as reimbursement? Like, will it have any?
I believe the grant was, I think it was reimbursement based, or no, I would need to go check. I don't know offhand, but I understand it that we would be getting the funds starting October 1st. So it leads me to believe it'd actually just be handed to us, and because we have to get the project done within 12 months. So
Okay.
that swale project would be completely funded by National Science Foundation dollars.
And
Thank
if for some reason, Mayor, we did not get this grant, then that project, there was no intentions of getting that project done. The whole thing that prompted it was this grant that Zach and his team were able to get.
Yeah, we would not, if for some reason we didn't get it, we would not proceed with the project.
Because we wouldn't have the funding.
And we'll know hopefully by October.
We will definitely know by October.
Okay.
Hopefully we'll know by the end of the month. We were told that the project was flagged as recommended, which is an excellent step. That's pretty much guaranteed, although, we don't want to say that until we have the email in hand. But that means that the National Science Foundation staff, much like they have their own council, staff recommended it to their council to approve. And once that happens, it's pretty much always guaranteed. So, but until we have that email, we don't want to jinx ourselves. But so far, so good. We should know by the end of August.
That's fantastic. Fingers crossed. So those concerns I think I share with Vice Chair Raymond on flooding, I think we all share these, will be handled with those improvements. And then money we're talking about today, ARPA funds. So if ARPA was going to pay for that, I think that would make more sense. No, I'm not recommending that. I think what we're doing is excellent, but Board Member Kellum, I think you have a comment. Your point is using ARPA for the park portion just doesn't make sense. You'd rather spend that on more flooding,
Yeah,
water
I
related?
mean, like, in our budget, which we'll talk about at the next meeting, just one example is for the resiliency upgrades, lighting, a system for protection, and metal flood doors. That, to me, would be more ARPA money, and it's down for CRA money. There's still flooding on Long Point Road. There was supposed to be, I know we were supposed to do the park down there, but I thought there was be a retention pond down there or something for those people that live at the end of Long Point Road. That's still flooding. That's more ARPA money that could fix that. And I just think, Veterans Park has been a CRA project from the beginning. And now the presidential master plan, which is awesome. But I think, we're a couple years out.
Just a correction, though, you go back in the Veterans Park was never a CRA program when we first initiated it and look in the budget. It was never even thought of as being a CRA project. It wasn't until just it's still
When we received the bid, and the bid was high, that's when we added CRA.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, I just think that ARPA money, we don't know what's going to happen with the presidential master plan once we get under the roads,
Yeah, I think the thing
If we
that.
keep that ARPA money for that, and
I think the thing, then your only recourse would be go back to the CRA because the money's not available for Veterans Park if you don't use ARPA money or if you don't go back to the CRA. So they're your two options, really. That's where the money stands. But staff just looked at the big picture and down the road instead of looking like just, 2 months in front of us and said that these presidential streets are going to cost a lot. And this was our opportunity to utilize the ARPA money that was remaining. But if council thinks that there's something within the next 2 years prior to when this expires that has to be obligated by fiscal year '26, another sort of thing or whatever, then they'd have to work with staff and let us know so we could redirect and use those monies towards like a stormwater project or what have you. But right now, this is where we stand. And there are 3 or 4 major projects that are being funded by ARPA that's going to happen this year and the year after. That's over $2.3 million. So those are the things that are slated. So it's a decision that council just needs whatever they feel more comfortable with, and then staff will make the adjustments.
Thank you.
Are you ready for a motion?
I just wanted to comment back on this, and then, yes, if that's what you want to do, I would say, yeah, I support using ARPA funds for another project and paying for this out of the CRA. I think the CRA has enough funds and there's enough projects, or even sharing it with the general fund and cutting something else. So if that's what you were looking for, Board Member Callum, I support anything. It would just, I mean, like to hear the rest of the council. I think we all agree with Vice Chair Raymond that we want to see this get done. No one's disagreeing with that, so I support in the stormwater, I agree that's going to get done. Do we have an issue with that? Using the ARPA, is there a concern about reader? Basically, the recommendation here today is to decline funding of the MP project with CRA funds is you're looking to not do that. You want to
Right.
keep it the way it is. And
I would
then,
like to make a motion, if you guys are all done, that we leave it in the CRA, fund the Veterans Park with the CRA and move ahead with it. We already have a bid. It's been out to bid. It's not about holding the project up. It's about where the money's coming from. So that's my motion, I think.
So you're against?
I'm against using ARPA money for Veterans Park.
He wants CRA.
so, okay, and that effectively would, so to decline funding of the VMP project with CRA funds, you're essentially voting, you would vote against that motion,
Yes,
right? So you are for,
using CRA money.
okay. And I think your motion, I understand you were describing it. I don't know if you formally made it or if you want to clarify it, but if you did, I think if there was a motion on the floor to decline funding, voting against it, this motion would come next. So as a second, but is that your motion to?
Yeah, my motion is to use the CRA money for Veterans Park, leave the ARPA money for other flooding problems or whatever in the city. And, I mean, with the value engineering that Todd's talking about for Veterans Park, we might not need the whole $425,000. But I think it's more of a CRA project, the parks, CRA's fund parks. So I think that it's more of a CRA project. So to make my motion clear, I make a motion that we use the CRA money for Veterans Park.
Understood. Okay. Thank you. Got a motion on the floor to use CRA funds money for Veterans Park. I will second the motion for discussion. So motion by Chairperson Callum, second by myself.
Mr.
Sorry,
Chair.
Board Member Callum, Chairperson Morrison. Yes, Mr. Morley?
Just to clarify that the motion is to expend $425,000 for Veterans Park improvements and amend the CRA's CIP accordingly, correct? If the maker would approve that friendly addition?
Was that your intent?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Board, yes. I get the sentiment. You do not want to move forward with this?
No, I have a question for
Please.
John DeLeo. Is there any difference in how we would use the funds as far as the ease of use versus ARPA and CRA for the presidential streets? is one vehicle more advantageous to us than the other?
Well, I mean, ARPA could be used for anything, okay, at this point, except for debt, taxes, and
Okay.
personnel costs, what have you. I know what you're saying. You're saying, well, if we use ARPA for Veterans Park, then we could use the 425 in the CRA for the presidential streets, and which is also going to have to do with sewer, stormwater, and what have you. So you know what's nice, here's what's nice about it, is by using the 425 in the CRA for presidential streets, we're already on that path. And that makes it very clean that we are going to be spending money starting this year on presidential streets. Instead of using ARPA over here to augment that CRA presidential street budget, we could just use it in Veterans Park. And the 425, it keeps it very clean and very, very auditable and trackable on the money we're using on presidential streets. And since it's valid to use it in the CRA, it just seems it's just more, it's more organized and better way to utilize the funds that could be tracked, when we're spending the money. In other words, why cross over and use ARPA money where we're going to need these big buckets of money in the CRA for the presidential streets? Well, we're saying we've got the money, we just leave it in the presidential streets and take the 425 for ARPA and finish Veterans Park. That's basically how we looked at it. It's more orderly, it's cleaner, and it's, from an audit perspective, I think it looks much better. But, I mean, we're in a situation where we could do either. But that's how staff looked at it, because we know for the next 20 years, and we'll all be here, that we will, I'm joking, that we will be doing the presidential streets.
Okay, thank you.
Well, my concern was just doing unnecessary calisthenics, so.
This is clean, it's cleaner and easier from a budget perspective to use ARPA with veterans.
Thank you.
That's all.
Okay. So we get a motion on the floor and second by myself to use CRA money for Veterans Park. One comment I want to make is Veterans Park is in the presidential streets area. It sort of could be justified that that is a presidential streets master plan upgrade in itself, a part of the whole plan. And so I think that the intent of using CRA money for presidential streets is, we all agree with that. And I do think Vets Park is kind of one and the same in that those improvements that we want to see in the presidential streets. I think a lot of the citizens would agree that Veterans Park is an area that needed to be improved. And so this almost, in my eyes, kicks off a part of the presidential streets improvements in addition to what Zach and the team is working on with the low-impact development improvements. And that kind of is the nucleus in addition to what's happening on these streets to see it sprawl outward, or however the council or future councils decide to do that. And so I don't have a problem with this, and I do think we could figure out a way to make it happen. So if there's any more questions or comments.
Well, I agree with you, Mayor. We want it to happen. We want it done. It's been pushed off too long. It's just a question of how we get there. And we may disagree on how we get there, but we all want the same thing. So,
Yeah.
Okay. Well, any more questions, comments? Seeing none?
No, I have no more.
Okay.
So, I do have one thing. So if we use the CRA money, it couldn't readily be tracked as well as the ARPA money?
We track all the funds. We were just looking in the uniformity and keeping it all in the same buckets. Yeah.
Okay.
We track every dollar, and I think our audits reflect that.
39 CRA money for.
Okay.
All right, so can we call the question?
Yes. City Clerk?
Yep. Board Member Davis?
Against?
Board Member Kellum?
Or?
Chair Morrison?
4.
Vice Chair Raymond?
Against.
Board Member Willis?
Against?
Okay, motion fails 3-2. Board?
Are we ready for the next motion?
Yes, if you are.
Okay. I'd like to move that we decline the funding for the Veterans Memorial Park project with CRA funds and use the ARPA funds in place.
I'll second the motion.
City Clerk, do you have that?
Yes.
Okay. Council or Board, any more discussion on this? Okay.
Call a question, please.
Yes. City Clerk?
Board Member Davis?
For?
Board Member Kellum?
Against?
Chair Morrison?
Against?
Vice Chair Raymond?
4.
Board Member Willis?
4.
Motion passes 3-2. Okay, great. Thank you. Now we'll move on to item number 3 of the agenda, CRA Board Meeting. Which is to consider approving the fiscal year 2023-2024 expenditure in an amount not to exceed $80,000 for the acquisition and installation of 4 electric vehicle charging stations. City Manager or
Sure, I'd be glad to
Director,
help.
any overview here needed?
Absolutely, and I'm sure Zach can give us some additional detail. Also, at its July 18th regular council meeting, the council approved city-owned electric vehicle charging station upgrade project in an amount of $120,000, contingent upon approval by the CRA board. This item came to light as a result of the 2023 strategic planning retreat. Cost figures were not available at the time of the city's fiscal year 23-24 proposed budget distribution. As a result, council was asked to approve a budget allocation for the project in the amount of $120,000 and an estimated annual revenue line item of approximately $72,000. The project includes the purchase and installation of 6 charging stations, 4 of which will be located in the CRA area. The 4 charging stations located in the CRA area have a total cost of $80,000, and they're eligible expenditures of CRA funds with the approval of the CRA board. The cost, $40,000 of the 2 charging stations outside of the CRA, will be funded through the city's general fund. So we're specifically saying this is for the chargers in the CRA area. The proposed location of the 4 chargers in the CRA, there's 3 of them at City Hall, and 1 will be at Canaveral City Park immediately north of the C5 Community Center. As mentioned at that council meeting, council approval is contingent upon this item being approved by the CRA board. So it's very similar to the last one, just asking CRA board to approve this expenditure and amend the CIP accordingly. Mr. Chair.
Can I make one comment?
Thank you.
The
Yes,
new,
H.
the new budgets that you all received, it did reflect that. We didn't have enough time with the previous one, but it does reflect on page 57 in case you do approve this. So it shows a line item for the EV charging in the CRA of $48,000 and then an expense line of $80,000 in the new budget updates that you were given.
Those are expenditures that are now reflected in the budget that we have now?
Right. The new one that you were given, it shows the line item for the EV charging and it shows the line item for the upgrade, just so you could see what the budget would look like if you approved it. That's on page 57.
Thank you. Did we also show the projected revenue?
Yes, that's a line item in the revenue for $48,000.
Okay.
Yeah, $24,000 would be shown in general fund for those chargers, and the chargers in the CRA is $48,000.
And so combined, it would be
It's $72,000 combined,
in total revenue?
correct. between general fund and CRA.
But all 72,000 comes from the sale of electricity?
Correct. But we can
Fee-
track the ones in the CRA and.
Understood.
Yeah. And our-
There's a CRA
yeah.
chargers, and then there'll be, or they're partially owned by the CRA. Either
Exactly.
way, the
Exactly.
total revenue is
Correct.
72,000.
And we did get advice from our auditors. We wanted to make sure that the CRA was allowed to have this line item as revenue, and they said yes. So we double-checked that, too.
Thank you. Board, were there anything else, Jenny? Thank you. Any comments, questions for staff on this one?
Mayor, I have a question.
Yes.
I think Jenny just answered my question, but I was concerned about the CRA and if we can spend the money on the CRA and make money. And they said the auditors said it was good.
Yes, I talked to the auditors, and as long as these things are operating in the CRA and being, and the expense is being carried, it's occurring in the CRA, then you can go ahead and you can do that, as long as it's in the CRA. So the expenses and the revenues, the particular revenues could be applied in the CRA too. Yeah, we were very, very careful and cautious with that because we wanted to make sure that we weren't violating anything, and we got the answer, so that was good. So when they
Okay.
see this in our audit, they're going to just say, this is exactly what we told you. So that's good. Yeah.
Okay, I was concerned about that, and that's why I passed out this handout about what you cannot do, because we're always concerned about, getting in trouble for that. So that was my question on that. Thank you for getting that information. That's all I have.
What, can you walk me through your estimates on the revenue again?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I don't have the paperwork in front of me, but we did estimate around 72,000 annually, using a conservative figure of the charging stations being used for a few hours a day. After speaking to other cities, it seems actually we're falling pretty well in line with what's going on. A lot of them did offer free charging. They started seeing a lot of use, continued seeing use, and continue to see increasing use, and have now assigned cost to these stations and have raised their prices to use them to account for the electricity expenditure. And we should have a fee schedule to you at the next coming council meeting to discuss what that will look like based on a local market study that we did of specifically 7 other municipalities in the area. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but.
Of similar size municipalities?
Oh, yeah, most of them. We did some larger ones too, but we looked at level 2 charging specifically, that same that we would have, to see what they were looking at. And I think we're going to be right about in line with what everybody else is doing. But across the board, they've seen increasing usage, so it's an alternative revenue stream for sure.
Okay. I don't have it in front of me, but I believe you did supply us with a list of the municipalities you looked at.
I
last
don't know if
council.
it was in that one, but there will be one in the agenda coming up for September's meeting, yeah. Specifically show which ones we looked at.
Okay. Thank
Most
you.
were in Brevard, so.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Okay.
I just have a
Yes.
quick- Is there, Zach, I was wondering, is there a Brevard city using these chargers?
There are a few, yes. Melbourne, Rockledge, and Cocoa Beach.
The same service we're getting?
Different manufacturers.
Oh, okay.
How many are available in Cocoa Beach?
1 on public property. It's in the Cocoa Beach garage.
Okay. The cost side, Did we pay for the electric charging stations in prior years out of the CRA?
No, sir, we did not.
I share,
Nothing was associated with the CRA for chargers previously.
I share the same concern as Chairperson Kellum. I'd rather not use CRA funds. I know that the question was asked by the auditors, and they said you can, but to me, I like the way we've approached the CRA in the past. It's public, but I think that this, if we can figure out a different way to fund these, I don't think that was the intent of a community redevelopment agency. The state of Florida said, I mean, largely it was around fixing blight. So however we define blight and its vagueness, I think we all do have some common agreement on what blight is. Those visual improvements on blighted properties, CRA money should be, in my opinion, more towards those blighted areas and spend it with the physical improvements such as sidewalks, roads, park improvements like we're talking about with Veterans Park, stormwater improvements. But for EV charging, is there any way we can fund this out of the general fund? The more I think about that, I really don't. And it seems to complicate the math that now we're going to have two revenue streams coming in from a general fund and some EV charging from both sides. Just think if this is a service that we're going to be providing, keeping it out of the CRA might not be a bad idea.
We can definitely do that. It would just be a matter of moving the revenue over to the general fund and the expense over to the general fund. So it makes no difference in the general fund. It just would make a difference a little bit in the CRA.
Yeah, and one of the reasons, Mayor, we did that obviously was because it was allowable and it's located in the CRA, it just took some strain off the general fund. You know, we do look for those opportunities, and I agree with you in the sense that we don't go looking for special things to be able to charge against the CRA, because we know we're gonna need a lot of that and whatever. But that was just, we had an opportunity there to potentially take a little strain off the general fund, because we know what's coming up in terms of when council looks at the budget and sees how big, you know, how low our contingency is and those things of that nature. When we discuss those things, that's where we could have, you know, could have saved that money there. But like Jenny said, yeah, it could easily just be charged in the general fund, and the general fund will feel the impact of that. Of course, we get revenue too, so, yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I have the same concern, because, you know, I looked up the CRA 163 or whatever it is, and in that it says CRAs are not special project funds to be used when revenues are not available in the general fund or reoccurring funds. And then I think that's just an iffy thing, and I agree with Chairperson.
Yeah, and that's why that's why we made sure we went through the auditors to get the blessing on that, because we weren't even going in that direction until we knew, because we're trying to get some relief on the general fund, so we made sure we validated that. Now, is the EV charging station, and I like the reference you used there, but is the EV charging station a special project or special? Well, it's not considered if it's going to be a permanent fixture in the city. So if we're going to have EV chargers, say, for the next 20 years, then it's not considered a special project per se. But anyway, just the general fund could be used for this.
I would be better inclined that it come out of the general fund. That's all.
I guess that would be, well, what do we think about that?
Well, to continue my line of reasoning from the last point, I would have to agree with moving it to the general fund to be consistent with what I already argued on. So I have no problem with that.
Would that mean we just take no action on this? And then when we take it back, we'd have to adjust the budget?
So you're considering approving it. So for the action would be to not approve the expenditure with CRA dollars,
And then that, okay.
and instead fund with a general fund.
Well, I don't think the CRA board can make a decision.
Yeah, just deny or decline.
Okay. We can continue to talk on it. I just wanted to clarify the easiest way to handle the concern.
Do we need a motion for that?
Please.
If we're ready, yep. I'm okay with that. It looks like I see general consensus is okay. Great. I do have a card here from,
Rather than consensus?
yes, absolutely. We'll have a motion. If you want to go ahead and do that, we can put the motion on the floor and then hear this public comment, if that's okay, or we can hear that now and then do the motion. Let's hear the public. If we're okay. Andrea, please. Thank you. Yes, Andrea shaking.
Okay. You all received a letter today or yesterday from one of our residents who is questioning why, in the overall picture of things, is the city involved in providing this type of accommodation for a certain segment of our population who have electric vehicles, when we're not doing the same for people with gas-powered vehicles. The city should not be in the business of providing electric chargers unless it is, of course, for city use, for the city vehicles. This is a private sector issue, and while we're debating on how to pay for these chargers, the question never comes up about why we should have them in the first place. This is not the city's core purpose. This is not a government issue. This is private sector, and the fact that we're getting involved in it, I think, it's ill-advised. It truly is. Some of the points that were made in that letter that you received, the record on past free charging station usage. We don't know what that is. We don't know how many EVs are owned in our city. We don't even know how many people have them. We don't know how many people have home charging stations that they could utilize on their own. If somebody chooses to buy an EV, that's fine. That's their choice. Why is the city taxpayer, even though you're saying you're going to get revenue, you haven't shown us any figures that guarantee that. Okay, so far it's been 7 years of expenditures with no written assessment of what was gained by that. All right, so why is the city even subsidizing EV ownership? I know that the city's mission is to be sustainable, to be environmentally sensitive, and to show that we are progressive. But that's not the way to do it. That's not in our purview as a city. This is not our core responsibility. It is the core responsibility of the private sector. And I just want to go on the record to say, I'm against this. If I were sitting on that dais, I'd be voting against this for that reason. It has nothing to do with whether or not people want to buy an EV. That's fine. That's their choice. But as a city, it is not our purview. It is not our core mission. It is none of our business to provide fueling for those who choose an electric vehicle. And I hope that the board will consider this rather than debating on how we're going to pay for them, whether or not we actually need them or should be providing them. 3 minutes are up. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, back to this board. I'd like to comment on that. I did receive that email and I've read it, and I think there were a few people, if not all of us, on it. And that is something that I take seriously, and I hear you. I think this council and staff has worked hard, and I do agree we're going to get better. We need to look at the numbers and verify, and I do appreciate the questions of, hey, how did you get to that number? We do want to be careful, and thank you, Zach, for stepping into that. And it's kind of some uncharted territory that I think some healthy caution is a good thing. And we have some time as we move forward here to get this budget put behind us. But no matter what, I do see a way to do this. But my mind could change, and I'm open to that. And I hope this council, we all learn together and work together. So with that, we can come back, and if there's not any other comments, I think we were discussing how to handle this item, which was to deny, and we were looking for a motion.
I'll make a good motion. Oops, sorry. I'll make a motion that we deny the CRA money paying for
Board
the.
Member Kellum, the city clerk says we already have a motion.
Oh.
Would you read it back, city clerk, please?
I think we got close.
We got close.
Okay, I apologize.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Please continue, Board Member Kellum.
Okay. So I make a motion that we deny the CRA board to, for the expenditures of the charging stations.
I'll second.
Got a motion by Board Member Kellum, second by Board Member Willis. Any further discussions or questions? Seeing none, City Clerk?
Board Member Davis?
4.
Board Member Kellum?
4.
Chair Morrison?
4.
Vice Chair Raymond?
4.
Board Member Willis?
4.
Motion passes 5-0. That's the third and I believe final item of our meeting. It is 5:57 PM. If there's any,
If the board is interested, Kyle could give a quick update on the CRA grants program, if the board would like to hear that.
Yes,
Board,
thank you.
please.
Very, very briefly.
If
We
I
do
can
have
make
to
a quick,
start at 6, though, for the other one. Maybe a 3-minute break or a 2-minute break would be, okay?
Mayor, quick comment on the last thing. Okay, the board just went ahead and voted against funding for the CRA. So is that mean the board's headed in the direction of that an agenda item in the next meeting has to be presented for the EV charger stations for its approval and whether or not
Yes.
it'll function out of the general fund?
Yes.
Okay, that's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you. Hey, Kyle?
Good evening, everyone. So the postcard went out 3 or 4 weeks ago regarding the CRA grant to everyone in the CRA. I've received now, as of today, I think 73 calls and more than a few emails. So the interest is there. It's very, very popular right now. So the applications, technically, we begin accepting them September 1st, and we expect to receive quite a few. So, yes.
That's great. Thank you.
Quick question, Kyle.
Well worth that.
How did you mail those? Because I had a neighbor that received one, but I didn't get one.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
They went to associations that were located in there, so the association, if it was a condo, the association is located within the CRA, they should have gotten that.
Well,
Is your neighbor in the CRA?
No,
he lives in the same condominium complex
Oh,
I do.
you mean that neighbor, okay.
Yeah, that neighbor.
I don't think you're in the CRA.
Well, but I had several neighbors that did receive it.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, we received a list of addresses. We did a map for the Brevard County Property Appraiser, and they provided us with the addresses. So I'm not sure how that happened.
If you could get us the specific neighbor's address, we can cross-reference it against our mail out and see why that happened.
I've got it.
All right,
Okay.
my question is, are condo associations and homeowner associations allowed to apply for the grants?
Yes, we have some of them who have inquired, and we've told them that, you know, that they're doing landscaping, things like that, so we've said that they can apply.
Board Member Raymond, of course, that is if they are in the CRA.
If they're in
Of
the
course, yes,
CRA?
if they're in the CRA.
Yes.
Thank you, Kyle.
Yes, thank you.
Thank
Any
you,
other
Kyle.
comments, reports, final?
I'd just like to get one of the cards. That's all. I just want one of them just to see it. Thank you.
Kyle's got one in
You
his
got-
pocket.
It's all right, you keep yours. I know where I can find somebody.
Okay, anything else? All right, meeting adjourned. Council, if we could take, start at 6:05, is that okay for our workshop? It'll be a budget workshop for those of you, if you want to stick around, we hope you do. We're going to dig into the budget, our first one, and we'll get started here at, 6:05 PM.